Brilliant. Good morning, grade 9s. Welcome to English. Good morning, everyone in cyberspace. What we're doing today, as I told you a couple of moments ago, is running through the exam revision guide. Those of you playing at home, this is on Sector, so make sure you can go find it on there and read through it. Like I said before, please do ask questions because if you have a misunderstanding or a need of clarification, chances are those people at home would also have one. So do yourself a favour and do those people at home a favour. Do chuck up your hand and ask anything that doesn't make sense. Cool. Alright, so this is our end of year exam coming up. It's on Monday next week, so a week from now. Again, I know that's a pretty limited time frame. I'd like to apologise again. It's not an ideal time frame because I was crook for a while, because we had camp. It's a bit more compressed than I would like it to be. My apologies there. So it's got three parts. First part is vocabulary. Now what I've done is just use this as a chance to reinforce the words we did last semester. So you just need to choose 10 words again. You are welcome to choose exactly the same 10 words. That is completely fine. So the first part, vocabulary, you choose 10 words from this list, which is coincidentally the same list up on the back of the classroom. And for those words, you need to give me the definition and use them in a sentence. Last semester, you had to give me the part of speech as well, whether it was a noun, adjective, verb, whatever. I've got rid of that this semester, so you do not need to give me the part of speech. You just need the definition and using it correctly in a sentence. The vocabulary section, each question is worth 2 marks. So the definition is worth 1 mark, and then using it in a sentence is also worth 1 mark. On that, it's important that it's obvious you know what the word means by using it in the sentence. So for example, if you choose the word untenable, if you just say the person was untenable, that kind of makes sense in one sense, but also it's not clear to me you know what that word means through that sentence. So if you want to guarantee you're going to get a 4 mark for using it in a sentence, you want to say something like, the person's argument was untenable because it wasn't a logical process, or it wasn't logical, or something like that. You want to prove to me that you know what the word means. If I'm not convinced that you know what the word means through its sentence, I will likely give you half a mark. Patrick, did that answer your question?
No, I was just wondering, would we potentially get more marks if we did more words?
Great question. We did that last semester, didn't we? Yeah. So we did it, was it a third of a mark, a quarter of a mark per word last time? Quarter? Yeah. Yes, we'll do that again. So quarter. So each additional word that has a correct definition and a correct sentence will get you an extra quarter of a mark again. Yeah. Maximum 4. So you can get 1 whole mark extra. Yeah. Cool. Any questions about the vocabulary aspect? Bob?
Can we only use these words?
I've said there, no I haven't said this, sorry. The exam does say if you've talked to Mr. Grieger about using additional words, that's okay, but talk to me first. Be like, hey Mr. Grieger, I'm hoping to use these 4 words, they're not on the list. Is that okay? Chances are it will be okay. Awesome. Cool. That's vocabulary. Next up, animal farm. Now this is where the bulk of the exam will be. Because in term 3 we spent a lot of time in those groups doing the persuasive writing thing. That was good, I'm glad we did that, but because we didn't look at heaps of content in that, most of the content we've looked at has come from the text of Animal Farm, so most of the questions are going to be centred around Animal Farm. So let's jump into that now. So, first dot point there. Who do the following animals represent and what role do they play in the revolution of Animal Farm? So, for all of those animals, there might be 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For those 9 characters, you want to be able to tell me who their historic equivalent was. So, hands up. Old Major, who was his historic equivalent? Vladimir. Brilliant. Bobette just got 2 marks there. Well done. Snowball. Who's Snowball's equivalent in Russian history?
Leon Trotsky.
Brilliant, Leon Trotsky. You will get 1 mark for Trotsky, so you don't need to remember Leon Trotsky. If you do, awesome. If you just write Trotsky, that's fine. When people become big enough in the history books, we just refer to them by their last names. For example, Stalin, Hitler, and a happy example such as Shakespeare. There we go. Cool. Or if you're on first name basis, you call him Bill, like I do, so they're mates. Yes, Bobolino.
Wait, never mind.
Thank you, Bobolino. All right. So for all of those characters there, I will say, so that dot point there asks you to tell me who they represent and what role they play in the evolution of Animal Farm. You are going to need to tell me each one who they represent. You are not going to be required to tell me what role each of them played in the revolution, but you will need to tell me what role some of them played in the revolution. I'll just clarify that again because it's a bit ambiguous. I'm not going to ask you to tell me exactly what role each of those 9 characters played, but you are going to need to know what role some of them played. Does that make sense? Bob?
What about the characters like, say, Old Major or Benjamin or something like that don't represent one specific person? Like, for example, Benjamin's a bit different because it's a group, except Old Major's like 2 separate people.
Yep.
What would you say?
So you're for who they represent?
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll go through that specifically. So Old Major, as Bobette said over here, Old Major represents a combination of 2 people, Karl Marx and the other one, and Vladimir Lenin. And so that's what you write. So it'll be something like, the question will be something like, who do the following people represent? And then it'll be Old Major written. And then you will simply write Karl Marx / Lenin. Like that. And that's what you do there.
Oh, we don't need like a description of the people.
So this dot point actually talks about 2 questions. In the exam, it'll just be question 1, who do the following people represent? You just write down the names. And then the question 2, I think it is, will be like, what role do the following characters play in the revolution? Yeah. And let's just go through Benjamin, because that's a bit of a... Actually, no, we won't go through that. With Benjamin, that's one of the other trickier ones. I'll let you talk that through in groups, and I'm almost certain between the class you'll be able to work out and remember who or what Benjamin represented. If in a few days' time you're struggling, you're like, Mr. Grieger, I think I remember talking about it somewhere, but I can't find it in my notes. Can you please help me out? Absolutely, I will, but I want you to go through that process first. Hands up if you kind of remember who Benjamin represents. Brilliant. So if you're stuck, talk to those people. That's brilliant. Good stuff. Bob Arena, did you have a question?
No.
Brilliant. Okay. Hey, Bob in the corner, just close the door so we can hear those horrible red ants. Thank you. Awesome. Next dot point. What means do the pigs use to restrict free speech? So, at the start of the novella, animals can pretty well say whatever they want. They can also vote on things. They can criticise stuff and not be killed. By the end of the book, that is not the case. By the end of the book, they do not have free speech. I want you to be able to tell me at least 2 specific ways that the pigs restrict free speech over the course of Animal Farm. Give me a nod if that makes sense. Cool. Any clarifying questions on that one? And I guess with all of these, there might be some that you go, oh, I can't think of 2 ways right now, but I'm pretty confident I'll be able to given a bit of time. That's awesome. If that's the case, don't worry about putting out your hand. If you're kind of like, I have no idea even where to start on that one, I don't think even with looking at that for 20 minutes I could come up with anything, that's when you should put up your hand. Any clarifying questions with that in mind? What I suggest you do if you're stumped on that one is one, chat to your friends. We will have lessons where I just say exam revision, and you're welcome to jump into pairs, groups, whatever. Like we've done with a few assessment tasks, obviously your exam itself is completely 100% individual, but your revision can be very communal. I have zero problems with you going through the sheet together and saying, all right, this is what I've got for these answers or for these questions. I've struggled with this one. What did you have for that? And then work through it together. And if you're like, oh, cool, that's right, I'm confident that's correct, brilliant, keep moving. If everyone in your group or your pair is kind of like, we've talked through it and we're still not really sure, that's when you come and check with me. So option one, work through it yourself or with your partner. And if collectively you're still unsure, then come chat to me and I'll help you out. Again, like with all exams here, all assessment tasks, my goal is to be as helpful as possible. So yeah, please make sure you use that. Cool. Next up point, how did Napoleon want to be seen by the other animals? How did he achieve this? Use examples. So Napoleon, mainly through Squealer, took great care in presenting himself in a particular way. He didn't want to be seen as unfair or foolish. He wanted to be seen as intelligent, as wise, as brave, for example. So I want you to have a think, how did Napoleon want himself to be portrayed? And how did he make that happen? And if I've said there, use examples, you know that in the exam, the question is going to say something like, using examples, yada, yada, yada. And if you don't have those examples ready to go, you will lose marks on that one. So if anywhere I've said use examples, make sure you do give me a specific, concrete example, not just a general sort of idea. Does that make sense? Questions, clarifications on that one? Give me a note if you're feeling like, yep, I'll be able to get that one, that'll be fine. Cool. And again, if you feel uneasy about any of these questions, take note of who's not, of who looks confident, so you can catch up with them at a later stage and have a quick chat. All right, there's a question there about the Russian Civil War, just a very quick one. I want you to be able to tell me who was fighting. So, who was fighting who in the Russian Civil War, probably why, and also death count. I want you to know just some very, very basic details there, just like Wikipedia introduction type things. So, who was fighting who, how many people died, why were they fighting? Bob.
You could just say, Napoleon was going against, what are the names? So you could just say Napoleon was opposing the other guy.
Are you talking animal farm or Russian history?
Well, who they represent in Russian history.
Yeah, Russian history. So, you want to be talking about Trotsky and you want to be talking about Stalin. Also, the Russian Civil War, that was probably a little confusing. During the Russian Civil War, Stalin and Trotsky were on the same side. They were fighting against the remnants of kind of the Tsar's army, Tsar Nicholas's army, and kind of what could have been Russian democracy, their army as well, kind of the interim Russian government. So really what you need to know for this question is that it was the Red Army fighting against the White Army. Red Army were the Bolsheviks, or the Communists, so Stalin, Trotsky, Lenin, etc. The White Army were the Tsarist people, and how many people died. That's all you need to have that one.
Would it be fair to say that the White Army had like odd philosophy or whatever, or were they not?
That would be fair to say, yes. Yeah. Cool. Sweet. All right, Boxer's death. Boxer plays a very important role in Animal Farm. I want you to understand the character of Boxer pretty well. I want you to understand why Boxer's death is particularly tragic. Really quickly, let's just go through what were the steps in Boxer's death and also what happened after. What were some of the big key points there? Bob Lennon.
Well, he was meant to retire into this nice place, but they used his retirement place for alcohol.
Brilliant. Okay, so there was a kind of a promise early on in Animal Farm that retiring animals would get to retire and just eat grass and chill out and be happy. But by the time any animal was ready to retire, the pigs had put that paddock aside for growing barley, which they used to make beer to get themselves drunk. Good. Yes.
Well, the pigs or leaders tried to hide as much as possible towards the other animals.
Hide Boxer's death, you mean?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And so let's just go back a step. Boxer was sick. Then what happened? Yeah.
He hurt his hoof at
Good.
one point, and then he was kind of like, because back in his day he would have recovered lickety
Yep.
split and back to work, and he like wasn't recovering, and then he just his ability like lessened more and more, and then eventually he couldn't really work at all like he used to. And
Yep.
he got taken away.
Brilliant. But at the back?
Is Boxer's death symbolic of him going to like hard labour in Siberia or something like that? Because nobody ever really said what that was representing.
Yeah. So what the person at the back is talking about is some people who Stalin disagreed with would be arrested, taken away, and often these are political prisoners. What we mean by that is people who object to the current government. So if you criticised Stalin, all of a sudden you'd be arrested, you'd probably never be seen again. And either one of two things would happen. Either those people would be executed very quickly, never seen again, or what would often happen as well is they'll do what this person at the back talked about. They'll be taken to kind of a concentration prison camp, often in Siberia, which is a very remote, very cold part of Russia, where they just have to do stupidly boring tasks all day, be fed very little, and probably one day die of a common cold or something like that. That isn't really reflected in the story of Animal Farm. Yeah, and so you're exactly right. That definitely happened to sadly millions of people in Russian history, but Orwell didn't put it within this text. Yeah, cool. So good general knowledge, but don't worry about inserting that into it. So Boxer's death. Boxer worked very hard for a long time. He was probably one of the most loyal, hard-working members of Animal Farm. Also, Animal Farm could not have progressed without him. The windmill, Orwell says something like, there were some days where it seemed the entire work of the windmill rested on Boxer's mighty shoulders or something like that. So we get the sense that Animal Farm could not have prospered without Animal Farm. His two maxims, his two personal mottos were...
You said Animal Farm could not prosper without Animal Farm.
My apologies, I'm still waking up, or maybe I'm already in holiday mode. Animal Farm would not have prospered without Boxer. His two maxims, so a maxim is a short, wise saying. His two personal mottos were, Napoleon is always right and I will work harder. And so he was incredibly loyal. It was pretty dull, not that clever, and he answered everything by working hard for the cause of Animal Farm. He was very selfless, very loyal. And then the moment he was no longer useful, in the book his lung collapses. I have no idea if that's a common thing for horses or not, but his lung collapses and he's unable to work. And then a horse-drawn cart comes to pick him up. What's written on the side of that horse-drawn cart?
It's like slaughterhouse and like it's like glue or something.
Yeah, slaughterer, glue knacker, or glue boiler or something. And so it was kind of like, in short, it was the knacker. So the person who kills animals, sells the meat for dog food probably, boils down useful parts and makes them into like glue and stuff because gelatin. So when you eat jelly, it's got gelatin in it. Jesse, you probably know this.
I don't eat jelly anyway.
Fair enough. And so gelatin, to get this jelly-like substance, uses horse hooves in it, I understand, which is very pleasant. And so there are lots of useful things you can use a horse carcass for, apparently. And so they sell Boxer to that guy, and then he, very simply, kills Boxer, cuts him up, uses his meat, sells it, makes money from it. And then what the pigs sell Boxer to those guys, what do the pigs do with that money?
Whiskey.
Go for it. Bought some whiskey, some sort of alcohol, and they get drunk on the money there. And I think you can probably fill in the gaps from those facts, from those events. You can probably fill in the gaps why that's tragic. So the question refers to why that's tragic, why that's unfair. I won't connect all the dots for you. I'll just leave those events there, and you should be able to hopefully put those together. Any questions or clarifications on that one? Cool. All right. How did the pigs deceive the animals? A very broad one, but the animals, a clever animal would have been able to see what's going on, but nobody did. Perhaps Benjamin did, but Benjamin didn't do anything about it. Every other animal was kind of convinced that the pigs were doing a good job, at least enough not to rebel against them. I want you to tell me how they did that. What means did they use to convince the animals that the pigs are doing a good job? Bob?
Didn't they keep on blaming Snowball for everything?
Pardon? Yes, they kept blaming Snowball. Brilliant. Yes.
I kept saying that what they were doing was, like when they ate the apples and like they said, it's so we can help you.
Brilliant. Good. So they had a line, I guess, making really Miss Fruits up. Yes. Tracy.
They used Squealer to convince everyone that what they're doing is actually good for them and the other animals.
Brilliant. Good. Use Squealer to convince them. Good.
They used the idea in the animal's head that Jones might come back, and they told Squealer was feeding everyone like fake facts about 500 times more crop was being sowed,
Good.
harvested.
Yes. Brilliant. You want to say something similar? Yeah. Cool. If you look through the lessons of Animal Farm, which you've got in your book, those will probably be helpful in this question as well. Cool. How do the pigs deceive the animals? Okay. Next up, one called the scapegoat mechanism. Now, we've talked about this briefly, I believe. Hands up if you remember when we talked about the scapegoat mechanism. A few of us. Good. Okay. Hands up if you want to have a go at saying what it is. Yo.
When you try and blame someone else for your own profit.
Brilliant. So the scapegoat mechanism, very simply, and it comes from the Bible, which is interesting. It's in Leviticus somewhere. The Jewish folks a few thousand years ago had this festival where once a year they would take a goat, and I feel very sorry for this goat. And they would literally dress this goat up in a purple robe and make it a false, like a fake crown, put this fake crown on his head, or a crown of thorns they put on his head. And then the priest would do this ceremony where they would say stuff like, all the things that we've done wrong, everything we've done wrong this year, it's not our fault anymore, we're not guilty of it anymore, we're going to pass that guilt onto the goat. And all of a sudden, this poor goat who's done nothing wrong, is just chilling out eating its grass, all of a sudden, this goat becomes the guilt bearer for all the bad things the Israelites had done. And then everyone lines up along the village, or in the camp or something, and then this poor goat is like chased out of town. And they're like, as the goat goes past, they'll like spit on it, they'll like slap it and kick it, they'll like shout things like, whoa, stuff you goat, we don't like you. And then they chase this goat out of town. And that was, obviously before Jesus came along and changed, the metaphysical nature of sin and guilt and stuff. That was one way in which people were able to get forgiveness from it. I won't pretend to fully understand it. Anyway, and so that's the origin of what we call the scapegoat mechanism. What the scapegoat mechanism is very simply, it's a way of us blaming others to make us look good and us feel better. Blaming others to make us look good and feel good. We've talked a bit before about if something goes wrong, it takes a big person, and I mean that in terms of a magnanimous, kind, wise person, to say, yep, I stuffed up and I'll do better next time and I'm sorry for it. That's hard to do and it doesn't make you feel very good. Napoleon didn't like doing that. Also, if Napoleon ever said something like, yep, I made a mistake, there's a sense in which he thought his authority would be lessened. If he said, yep, the windmill blew over in the storm because I didn't realise to make the walls thick enough, he wouldn't look as perfect, he wouldn't look as good. And one thing that Napoleon did, which almost all leaders, all tyrannical dictator sorts of leaders do, is they want to make themselves seem perfect. So Stalin, for example, instead of saying, instead of saying there was, I don't know, instead of saying in World War II, for example, Russia lost very big battles to Germany very quickly, instead of Stalin saying, yeah, we were defeated because we were outgunned or outmatched, he would probably blame it on somebody else and say there were spies or people didn't work hard enough. Trotsky was chased out of town because he was said to be a Japanese spy. And so it always blamed other people because he wanted to make himself look perfect. If he's perfect, no one can challenge him. Yes?
Was Trotsky like a better guy? Like, did he have good intent for the Russian population or not?
I don't really know. I think communism itself suffers lots of problems in that it seems to bring out the worst in people quite quickly. And so, who knows? I mean, it's a hard argument to make that it would have been as bad as Stalin, but I doubt he was a chipper bloke either. Yeah, but I don't know enough to give you a good answer. Up the back.
I actually was researching about Trotsky this done. He did lead the Red Army, which was a very brutal army that did some very bad war atrocities, and he knew that. And so I guess I wouldn't say he's innocent, but he wasn't as bad as Stalin, but he was still bad.
Yeah, brilliant. Good research. Yeah. So the question, and we might go through this a bit more, like at the start of a particular lesson, we might catch up and just spend 5 minutes on the scapegoat mechanism. What I want you to know is, humans, particularly bad leaders, always want to blame somebody else. They do that for a couple of reasons. Because they want themselves to look good. If they look good, less people are going to challenge and criticise them. That's pretty well lived. In a personal level, and I guess it has a bit to do with pride as well. When you see people blaming other people, it has a lot to do with pride. It's kind of like, I was chatting to, I was chatting to someone over the weekend, and they were saying, hey, what you said there was probably actually a bit rude, a little bit hurtful. In that moment, you've got the choice to be, okay, either I'm perfect and you're wrong, which feels good. I like to think, no, you've got it wrong. But then there's another little voice inside your head that goes, chances are I'm not perfect and maybe I do need to learn something here. That's how you see it on a personal level. It's so easy to blame stuff on other people. It feels much better. So we see the scapegoat mechanism in a personal level and also on a governmental level as well. We will come back to that, but are there any questions on that one? Cool. Mock trials. I want you to tell me why Stalin had mock trials, or why Napoleon. I forget what the question says. Hands up. Why did Napoleon bother having mock trials? Yeah.
Because he believed that the educated and more smart people would take over and realise what he's doing is bad.
I'm not following along, sorry. Tell me, so...
Because he saw people he thought people were trying to rule against him.
Good.
And he didn't like that. He thought he was not his leader anymore, so he decided
To get rid of them. Okay, good. So the people who were executed as a result of mock trials were, as this person described, the people who Stalin was a little bit scared of, who we thought might rise up against him. And so he wanted to get rid of them. You're exactly right. But why go through the effort of putting them on a mock trial? Why have a big court process and let everybody see, hey, this is kind of a legitimate trial, but it's kind of not at the same time? Why go through that process?
To make it seem like he's doing it justly, which is kind of related to the scapegoat thing.
Precisely, yep. And so this person hit the nail on the head just there. So the question says something like, why bother doing the mock trials? What I want you to get at there is Stalin and Napoleon wanted to have a facade or a veneer or an external appearance of being just and kind and good. And so, if you put on a mock trial and say, we charge you with this, and then if the people admit to it, because as we talked about before, they were kind of tortured for days or weeks or months until they said, fine, just stop hurting me, I'll confess to whatever you want. And if everyone sees that, they see, you are charged with conspiring against the Russian people. How do you plead? I plead guilty. All right, you're sentenced to death. that looks kind of like a fair trial. And the rest of Russia can go, oh, okay, cool. That was a fair process. Maybe our leader isn't so bad after all. And so there's another way that Stalin and Napoleon was able to kind of cement their rule, appear to be a better leader than they were. And what I would do if I was revising for this is I'd just watch this video again, because all this stuff I'm saying is pretty well exactly the sort of stuff I want you to think about in the exam. Questions there? Cool. All right, let's whiz through the last part, persuasive texts. So you will be required to write a persuasive text in the exam. You know, the sort of thing, maybe a page to 1.5 pages long type thing. If it turns out yours is 3/4 of a page, don't freak out because of that, that's okay. What I'm looking for in that persuasive text is your structure. So I want you to have paragraphs. I want you to have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. You're going to be given 2 choices to choose from. So, you know, it'll be something like, write a persuasive piece about one of the following topics. And it'll be, cats are better than dogs, school uniform should be compulsory. Those aren't the topics, but it'll be something like that. And then you need to choose one of them, and you need to write persuasively on one of those topics, arguing from either side. So if a topic says cats are better than dogs, you can write cats are better than dogs, or you can argue dogs are better than cats. You can flip it either way there. I'll be looking for your ethos, pathos, and your logos. So if you're kind of like, oh, I remember something about those, but I'm not exactly sure how to do them or what that all means, that's where you should start the revision. And again, we'll have some lessons this week maybe look at that. So I want you to tap into people's emotions. I want you to have some logical aspects to your response. I want you to, as much as you can, use that ethos, use that persuasion by character to argue your points as well. What we'll do, because it has been quite a while since we've been working with persuasive writing, is we'll have a lesson where we start the lesson looking at that and go into a bit more depth. Are there any questions just on the persuasive writing aspect there?
Would the marking be a little bit more liberal considering it's like...
Great question, it will be, yeah. So to get 100% on a piece of writing that you've had a week or 2 to work on, get drafts and feedback and polishing stuff, to get 100% on that would require this level. To get 100% on a piece that you've got maybe 40 minutes to write requires a lesser level. Absolutely great question. And particularly in cases like spelling, punctuation, so long as I can read your ideas, I would be surprised if I take marks off for incorrect spelling, punctuation, stuff like that. Sometimes punctuation can affect meaning, and sometimes spelling, if it's very bad, can make something harder to read. If your spelling and punctuation lessens the meaning of your writing, a small amount of marks will be taken off for that. But that's the only case that I can see where I'll be taking marks off for little mistakes. Yeah.